There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than sermons. Moments when the whisper of the Spirit drowns out the applause of the crowd. Chosen one, you've been talking too much, and heaven is no longer applauding, heaven is grieving. Because God gave you secrets, and you've turned them into speeches. He gave you revelation, and you rushed to make it content. He gave you strategy, and you shared it with people who couldn't handle it. And now, the oil is leaking, and God is angry. There are few things more sacred than the secrets that God entrusts to His chosen ones. When God imparts wisdom, guidance, or revelation, it is not simply for the sake of personal understanding. It is not meant to be shared with just anyone or broadcast to the masses. It is meant to be a key, a treasure, something sacred that only those who are aligned with His will and purpose can fully appreciate. This is why guarding the secrets that God has placed in our hands is of paramount importance. When you fail to protect these divine treasures, you risk more than just the loss of an idea or insight. You risk the loss of your assignment, your calling, and your place in His kingdom. In this world of constant connectivity where everyone is eager to share their thoughts, experiences, and ideas on social media or through other public platforms, it can be easy to fall into the trap of thinking that everything of value should be exposed to the world. After all, isn't the goal to spread knowledge, to help others, to share your journey? While there is wisdom in sharing when the time is right, there is also a deeper wisdom in knowing when not to share. God, in His infinite wisdom, does not reveal everything at once, and certainly not to everyone. Sometimes He reveals just enough to guide you in the moment, but He withholds the full picture, knowing that you are not yet ready to handle the full weight of it. This idea of guarding what God has revealed to you is not a sign of insecurity or pride, but rather a sign of responsibility. It is an acknowledgement that the wisdom you carry is precious, and that it carries with it a weight that not everyone can understand, let alone handle. When God reveals something to you, whether it's a specific calling, a plan for your life, or a message for others, it is something that must be nurtured and protected. It's like planting a seed in the ground. If the seed is exposed too soon, before the root system has developed, the elements will destroy it. But if the seed is nurtured in secret, watered and cared for in silence, it will grow and produce fruit in its due season. Imagine if Joseph had shared his dreams with his brothers after his first vision of greatness. Imagine if he had gone straight to his father, proclaiming that one day his family would bow down to him. What would have happened? The very people who were meant to support him and help him fulfill his destiny would have turned on him. They would have seen him not as a dreamer with a divine purpose, but as an arrogant young man who needed to be brought down a notch. This is exactly what happened, and Joseph ended up in a pit, far from the dream that God had shown him. The dream was real, but his timing was not. His premature sharing of the dream exposed him to unnecessary suffering, and yet God, in His grace, used that suffering to mold Joseph for his destiny. Likewise, you must understand that not everyone around you is equipped to receive the revelation that God has entrusted to you. Some people may be well-meaning, but their understanding of God's will and purpose for your life may be limited. Others may be jealous, envious, or threatened by the things you share, and they will work to undermine you. There are even those who, out of ignorance, will dismiss your dreams or vision as mere fantasy. It is not their fault, but it is your responsibility to guard your divine secrets. The Bible warns us about giving precious things to those who are unworthy of them. In Matthew 7:6, Jesus says, "Do not give dogs what is holy. Do not throw your pearls before pigs." The pearls He speaks of are the divine revelations and insights He has entrusted to you. These are not meant to be casually tossed around to anyone who asks. They are meant to be handled with care and only shared with those who can appreciate their value. Sometimes when God gives you a revelation, it is a message for you, not for the masses. It is a guiding light that will lead you to your next step, to the place where He wants you to go. Not everything that God reveals to you is for public consumption. Some things are just between you and Him, a sacred trust that requires your silence. This is a difficult thing to understand, especially in a culture that prizes openness, transparency, and instant gratification. We live in an age where everyone wants to share everything, whether it's their meals, their thoughts, or their dreams. But when it comes to God's secrets, the most important thing you can do is remain quiet and let them grow in you until the appointed time comes for them to be revealed. There is an aspect of spiritual maturity that involves learning the difference between sharing too much and sharing just enough. Wisdom tells us when to speak, when to remain silent, and when to share only with those who are equipped to handle what we carry. Too many times we open our mouths out of fear, insecurity, or the need for validation. We want people to see that we're chosen, that we have a purpose. But God doesn't need your validation. He needs your obedience. He needs you to trust His timing and to understand that some things cannot be rushed. The truth is that God will only reveal to you what you can handle. If He has given you a great vision, it is not because you have earned it, but because He knows that you are capable of carrying it with integrity. The key is in how you handle the responsibility of that revelation. The more significant the secret, the more sacred the calling, the more careful you must be with what you reveal and when you reveal it. There will come a time when the world will see what God has been doing in your life. And when that time comes, it will be undeniable. It will be like the sun breaking through the clouds, and everyone will know that God's hand has been on you. But until that time, the seed of your destiny must remain in the ground, hidden from view, growing in the silence of God's preparation. There are moments in life when you will feel the urge to share, to explain, to show others what God is doing in your life. But it's in those moments that you must resist the temptation to speak. Trust that God is working behind the scenes, even when you cannot see the fruit. Guard your secrets, protect your revelation, and wait for the appointed time. God knows when it's time to bring the hidden things to light, and when that time comes, nothing and no one will be able to stop it. Until then, rest in the knowledge that what God has revealed to you is precious, and the best thing you can do is keep it hidden, safe, and secure within your heart. In a world that is driven by instant gratification, constant communication, and the need for validation, one of the most important virtues a person can develop is the wisdom of discretion. Discretion involves making wise choices about what to say, when to say it, and to whom. It's not about withholding the truth or keeping secrets for the sake of secrecy, but rather about understanding the weight of your words and the timing of their release. The Bible speaks frequently about the power of words and how the tongue, although small, can have a tremendous impact. The book of Proverbs tells us that the tongue has the power of life and death, Proverbs 18:21. This verse speaks to the profound impact that words can have on our lives and the lives of others. When we speak prematurely, without discretion, we can easily cause harm, misunderstandings, and even delays in our purpose. God, in His infinite wisdom, has always been intentional with His words. He spoke creation into existence, but He also spoke in parables, in riddles, in ways that only those who were spiritually attuned could understand. Jesus, when He was on earth, did not reveal everything to everyone. There were times when He would speak to the masses in ways that only the initiated could comprehend, and other times when He would reveal deep truths only to His disciples. He understood the power of discretion, and He used it to His advantage. Jesus didn't simply say everything that was on His mind. He spoke with purpose, with a clear understanding of who needed to hear what He had to say at that particular moment. In the same way, we must learn to use discretion in our lives. Not every thought that comes to our mind needs to be spoken out loud, Not every revelation or vision needs to be shared with others, especially when it comes to matters of divine purpose. There is a time for everything under the sun, as the book of Ecclesiastes reminds us, and knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is a crucial part of that understanding. The temptation is often to share what we know, to let others see the wisdom or the revelation we've received. But we must remember that some things are meant to be kept in the heart, held close to the chest until the right moment. One of the most significant aspects of discretion is understanding the hearts of those around you. Not everyone can handle the weight of the truths God has entrusted to you. There are people who may not be in a place spiritually to understand the depth of what you've been shown, and if you share too soon, you risk being misunderstood or misrepresented. Furthermore, there are people who may be jealous of what God has revealed to you, and they will use your words against you. In some cases, they may even try to sabotage your efforts or undermine your calling. God's wisdom in revealing things to us is always coupled with His knowledge of who can handle those revelations. He doesn't reveal His secrets to the fool, to those who are easily swayed or who have no foundation in His truth. When we speak without discretion, we often open ourselves up to attacks, not just from the enemy, but from those who do not understand the importance of what has been entrusted to us. Jesus warned us in Matthew 7:6 to not give dogs what is holy, meaning that there are certain things that should be kept sacred, things that should not be cast out into the open for all to see. This doesn't mean we should withhold truth, but rather that we should discern the right moment to speak and the right audience to address. Discretion is not just about keeping things secret. It's about knowing that some things require time to grow before they are ready to be shared. A plant needs time to take root, to grow strong before it can bear fruit. Similarly, God's revelation in our lives needs time to mature before it can be shared with others. This is why the wisdom of discretion is so powerful. It allows us to grow in wisdom and understanding before we are called to share what we have received. It helps us avoid the pitfalls of premature exposure and the dangers of revealing too much too soon. We must be patient with the process of God's timing, trusting that when the time is right, the fruit of our labor will be seen by all. It is also essential to remember that God's revelation in our lives is not just for our benefit. It is for the benefit of others, but only at the right time. The wisdom we gain from God is not meant to be hoarded, but to be shared with those who can receive it and use it for His glory. However, when we share too soon, when we speak before we are ready, we risk distorting the message or misrepresenting the purpose. It is in the quiet moments of reflection, in the secret place where we commune with God, that we are prepared for the right time to speak. We must trust that when the moment comes, God will make it clear, and He will give us the words to speak. Another key aspect of discretion is understanding the weight of responsibility that comes with our words. When we share a revelation from God, it carries His authority. It has the potential to shape minds, to influence hearts, and to change lives. This is why we must take great care in how we share what we know. When God gives us a vision, He is not only giving us a glimpse into our future, but He is also entrusting us with something that could have a profound impact on others. If we are careless with that information, we risk diminishing its power and even causing harm. This is why discretion is essential. It helps us honor the sacredness of what God has entrusted to us, and ensures that we use our words wisely. In practical terms, discretion also involves understanding the context in which we are speaking. For example, there are certain situations where it is inappropriate or unwise to share a revelation, even if we feel it is important. Some people may be going through a difficult time, and sharing certain truths may seem insensitive or may cause more harm than good. In such moments, we must rely on the Holy Spirit to guide us in how to speak, or if to speak at all. The wisdom of discretion teaches us that our words must always be tempered with love, compassion, and understanding. The goal is not to impress others with our wisdom, but to build them up, to help them grow in their faith. and to bring glory to God. The wisdom of discretion comes from a deep understanding of the timing and purpose of God's revelation in our lives. It is the ability to recognize that not everything needs to be shared right away, and that there is great power in waiting for the right moment. This wisdom allows us to avoid the pitfalls of premature exposure, to protect the sacredness of what God has given us, and to ensure that when we do speak, we are speaking with authority and clarity. As we learn to walk in the wisdom of discretion, we will become better stewards of the revelations God entrusts to us, using them to fulfill His purposes and bring glory to His name. There are severe consequences when we fail to guard the divine secrets entrusted to us, and one of the most destructive outcomes is premature exposure. When we share too much too soon, we open ourselves to dangers and attacks that could have been avoided had we chosen to wait for the right time. This is not just a matter of maintaining some sense of privacy or secrecy. It is a matter of preserving our calling and ensuring that the destiny God has planned for us unfolds in His perfect timing. When God reveals something to us, it is not only for our benefit, but also for His kingdom. Each revelation, vision, or purpose is a part of His divine plan, and the way we handle that revelation determines its future impact. Exposure before the appointed time can bring confusion, misunderstanding, and even cause the very revelation to be misused. There are several consequences that arise from exposing what God has entrusted to us before the time is right. One of the first consequences of exposure is the loss of trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, especially in the context of the kingdom of God. When God reveals something to us, He is entrusting us with something valuable. If we share that revelation carelessly or prematurely, we undermine the trust that God has placed in us. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. And once people see that we cannot be trusted with sensitive information, they may become hesitant to listen to us or follow us. This is not just about interpersonal relationships, but also about our relationship with God. God gives us revelations because He knows we can handle them responsibly. When we fail to guard them, we are telling God that we cannot be trusted with the deeper things He wants to show us. The second consequence of exposure is the potential for misinterpretation. Not everyone who hears what we have to say will understand it in the way it was meant. Often those who are not spiritually attuned or aligned with God's purposes can distort or misunderstand the message. This can lead to confusion, division, or even the spread of false information. When Joseph shared his dreams with his brothers, they did not understand the spiritual significance of what he was saying. Instead, they saw it as a threat and plotted to harm him. What was meant to be a divine revelation was twisted because it was shared with the wrong people at the wrong time. This is one of the key reasons why discretion is necessary. It allows us to wait for the right audience, the right moment, and the right context for sharing what God has shown us. Premature exposure can also cause unnecessary warfare. There are times when sharing what God has revealed to us invites spiritual warfare, not because the enemy has power over us, but because we have prematurely put ourselves in the line of fire. When we reveal too much before the appointed time, we often make ourselves vulnerable to attacks, ridicule, or attempts to discredit us. Satan is keen to attack anything that threatens his kingdom, and if we reveal a divine plan or calling prematurely, it can attract spiritual opposition that could have been avoided had we kept the vision quiet until it was time for its manifestation. This is why the Bible urges us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. The enemy is watching, waiting for an opportunity to undermine the work of God in our lives, and if we are careless with our words or actions, we give him that opportunity. The Bible is full of stories where premature exposure led to significant challenges. One of the most notable examples is the story of Samson. Samson, a man chosen by God from birth, had a divine calling on his life. However, he lacked discretion, especially in his relationships. His decision to share the secret of his strength with Delilah, a woman who was clearly aligned with the enemies of Israel, led to his downfall. By exposing the source of his strength, He allowed the enemy to weaken him and ultimately capture him. Samson's exposure of the secret meant to protect his divine purpose ultimately led to the destruction of his destiny. His failure to use discretion and wait for God's timing caused him to lose everything, including his relationship with God. This is a powerful reminder that exposure has consequences, and we must not take lightly the responsibility that comes with handling the divine revelations entrusted to us. Another aspect of premature exposure is the emotional toll it takes on us. When we reveal our dreams, visions, or plans too soon, we often open ourselves to criticism, doubt, and discouragement. There are people who will not believe in the vision God has given us, and their skepticism can create doubt in our own hearts. When we share something that is still in the formative stages, it can be easily criticized or rejected, and this can cause us to doubt God's calling on our lives. Rather than encouraging us, premature exposure often leaves us feeling deflated, as though we've put our hearts on the line only for others to question or ridicule us. This emotional toll can make us hesitant to share in the future, or even lead us to doubt the validity of the revelation we received. This is why it is so important to guard our words and to trust in God's timing for when to speak. The consequences of exposure can extend beyond our personal lives. If we expose something that God has given us prematurely, we can cause confusion or hinder the work of others. For example, when Joseph shared his dreams, it not only caused friction between him and his brothers, but also disrupted the natural course of events that would lead him to his destiny. Had Joseph waited, had he kept the vision to himself and allowed it to mature, perhaps the events would have unfolded in a less contentious way. God's plan is always perfect, but our impatience can interfere with the smooth unfolding of His will. The timing of our revelations is just as important as the content itself. Another crucial aspect of premature exposure is the tendency to over-explain. Often, when we reveal a divine secret, we feel the need to explain every detail to others, to justify our vision, to make others understand what God has shown us. But the truth is, we don't need to explain ourselves to anyone. God has not called us to gain approval from others for the revelation He has given us. The moment we begin to over-explain, we diminish the authority of the revelation itself. We begin to seek validation from man rather than trusting in God's plan. Premature exposure can lead us to become people pleasers, constantly looking for approval and affirmation, when we should be focused solely on fulfilling God's will for our lives. Premature exposure leads to a loss of focus. The moment we share something too early, our focus shifts from the purpose of the revelation to managing the reactions and responses of others. Instead of focusing on developing and preparing for what God has shown us, we become distracted by the opinions of others, their doubts and their questions. This distraction can delay our progress and cause us to lose sight of the true purpose behind the revelation. It's in the quiet moments, in the waiting, that God molds and shapes us for the work He has prepared for us. When we expose what He has given us too soon, we rob ourselves of the time needed to prepare and grow into the person He needs us to be. The consequences of exposure are far-reaching, affecting not only the course of our destiny, but also the emotional, spiritual, and relational aspects of our lives. It is crucial to recognize that guarding our divine secrets is a form of obedience, a way of honoring the trust that God has placed in us. It is a responsibility that we must take seriously if we are to fulfill the calling and purpose He has set before us. There is something uniquely powerful about timing. Timing is the difference between success and failure, between victory and defeat. This is especially true when it comes to revealing the divine secrets and revelations God has placed in our hearts. Many of us have experienced moments of excitement when we receive a fresh word from God, a new vision or a new insight into our purpose. The natural instinct is to share it, to tell others about the incredible things God is revealing to us. However, This eagerness to share without considering the appropriate timing can often lead to missed opportunities or unnecessary struggles. Timing in the context of revealing divine secrets is not merely about waiting for the right moment. It's about understanding the seasons of God, the unique phases in His plan that require patience, discernment, and trust. When we talk about timing in revealing what God has shown us, we must recognize that God is always intentional. There is nothing haphazard about His actions or decisions. Everything He does has a purpose, and that includes the timing of when He reveals His secrets. Sometimes God will give us a vision or a revelation, and we feel an immediate need to share it. Yet God might be asking us to wait, to hold it in silence for a season. This waiting period is not a sign of inactivity, but an opportunity for growth. While we wait, God is preparing us for the next phase of the revelation. He is shaping our character, strengthening our faith, and giving us the wisdom we need to carry the weight of the vision we've received. One of the greatest challenges that we face when we receive a revelation is the temptation to rush ahead and share it with others. We may feel that by sharing it we are doing God's work, that we are helping others by spreading the message He's given us. However, when we share something before its appointed time, we risk causing confusion, misunderstanding, and even opposition. God's timing is perfect, and when He reveals something to us, He does so with a clear purpose in mind. He knows when the world is ready to hear it, when the people who need to hear it are prepared to receive it, and when the conditions are right for the revelation to bear fruit. Joseph's story is one of the most poignant examples of the importance of timing. When God revealed to him the future greatness that awaited him, Joseph could have chosen to share his dreams with his brothers in a different way, with more discretion and patience. Instead, his excitement led him to share his vision prematurely, not fully considering the potential consequences of his actions. Joseph's brothers, unable to understand the vision and resentful of his perceived arrogance, responded with jealousy and hatred, eventually leading to his betrayal and sale into slavery. While God's plan for Joseph's life was not derailed, the premature sharing of his dream led to unnecessary suffering and delays. Joseph had to go through trials that he might have avoided if he had been more cautious in revealing his dreams at that moment. It wasn't until years later, after Joseph had been shaped and tested by God, that the full revelation of his dreams came to pass. The timing of the revelation, both in Joseph's life and in the lives of his brothers, was perfectly orchestrated by God, but it required waiting, patience, and a willingness to trust in God's timing. We must learn to trust God's timing in our lives, understanding that there are seasons when we are not ready to handle the full weight of the revelation He has given us. It is essential to recognize that God does not give us His secrets to be shared immediately. Instead, He gives us His secrets to prepare us for the moment when His plan will unfold. In the waiting, we learn to trust Him more deeply. We learn to align our desires with His will, and we are equipped with the wisdom, strength, and humility needed to carry the revelation forward when the time is right. Timing also requires a deep sense of spiritual discernment. God has given us the Holy Spirit to guide us in all things, including knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. The Spirit of God will prompt us to share or remain silent based on what is best for us and for those around us. As we grow in our relationship with God, we develop a sensitivity to the Spirit's leading. We learn to recognize His voice when He calls us to speak, and we learn to discern when it is better to remain quiet and allow the vision to mature in silence. The Apostle Paul understood this when he spoke of the need for spiritual maturity and discernment in handling the things of God. He wrote in 1 Corinthians 2:10-12 that these are the things God has revealed to us by His Spirit. The Spirit searches all things,